All right, let's dive into a story of sacred grief. We're going to unpack how an absolutely heartbreaking tragedy ended up creating some of the most powerful and revered holy sites in the entire world.
So you have to wonder, right? How can profound pain, real tragedy, actually give birth to something divine? Well, the answer is buried in this incredible ancient story about gods and kings, and it all kicks off with one event that puts a terrible destiny into motion. Okay, so let's set the scene. We're going way, way back to the Satya Yuga, the very first, most righteous age in Hindu tradition. And at the heart of our story are three key figures. You've got the super powerful King Daksha, his daughter, Sati, and her husband, the one and only Shiva. Now, King Daksha, he wants to show everyone just how important he is. So what does he do? He organizes a yagna, a massive sacrificial fire ceremony. And I mean, this wasn't some small get-together. This was a huge, cosmic event designed to show off his prestige to everyone, with invites sent all across the heavens. But here's where it all starts to go sideways. Daksha invites literally everyone, all the gods, every royal you can think of, and yet he deliberately snubs two people, his very own daughter, Sati, and her husband, the great god Shiva, Mahadeva. See, in Daksha's view, Shiva was this ascetic, this outsider, totally unworthy of a princess. This wasn't just an accident. It was a cold, calculated, public insult.
So this cruel move puts Satya in an impossible spot. She's caught right in the middle, between her father's public rejection and her deep, deep love for her husband. And the decision she makes next, well, that becomes the story's tragic turning point.
Now, Shiva totally saw this for what it was. He warned her, "This is a bad idea, don't go." But Sati, she went anyway. She was holding on to that little bit of hope that maybe, just maybe, she could change her father's mind, that he'd see her, show some love, and finally accept the man she chose. But that hope she had, it was just crushed. In front of the entire assembly of gods and royals, King Daksha doesn't just give Shiva the cold shoulder, he unleashes on him. He publicly calls him an unworthy outcast, totally unfit for his daughter. I mean, just imagine the absolute shock and humiliation of that moment. And for Sati, that was it. That was the breaking point. To have her husband, the supreme Mahadeva, insulted like that by her own father, it was just too much to bear. Filled with this righteous anger and just overwhelming grief, she decides she has to do something drastic. And what she does next is just an incredible display of power. This wasn't an ordinary death. Through nothing but her own force of will, she summons this inner yogic fire, and right there at the sacrificial pit, she gives up her life. It was a tragic act of protest, but also of pure devotion. Sati's sacrifice, well, that was the spark that lit a cosmic fire. The fallout was immediate, and it was cataclysmic. Her death unleashed a sorrow so huge, so powerful, it literally threatened to unmake reality itself. This was a god's cosmic brief. When the news gets to Shiva, his reaction isn't just sadness. Oh no, it is pure apocalyptic fury, the kind of rage that makes the universe itself shake. This was the fury of a god who had just lost everything. In his rage, he descends on Daksha's ceremony. He doesn't just stop it, he completely obliterates the entire yagna, everyone there, and in a final act of vengeance, he beheads King Daksha himself. But you know what? Even that didn't end his pain. He's consumed by this grief that's just maddening. He lifts Sati's body onto his shoulders and just starts to wander aimlessly across the universe, totally abandoning all his divine duties. His personal sorrow had become so big, it was now threatening to pull the very fabric of the cosmos apart. So all the other gods, the Devas, they're watching this in absolute terror. The universe is literally on the brink of collapse. They know they have to do something, and they turn to the one being who might actually be able to intervene. This is where the great god Vishnu comes in. To save everything, he chases after the wandering, grief-stricken Shiva, and he unleashes his divine weapon, the Sudarshana Chakra. Now, the goal here wasn't to hurt Shiva, it was to break the spell of his grief by removing its physical source, Sati's body. And this intervention, which sounds pretty brutal, is actually what leads us right to the creation of the sacred places we're talking about. This is the exact moment that tragedy begins to transform into something truly sacred. So as the Sudarshana Chakra does its work, fragments of Sati's body and even her ornaments, they fall from Shiva's shoulders all the way down to earth. And every single place a piece landed, it was like it instantly became supercharged, absorbing the intense, divine energy of the mother goddess. These places were forever changed. And those places are what we know today as the Shakti Peethas. The source material has this perfect description for them: highly consecrated, pulse-pounding centers of energy. I mean, how amazing is that? They aren't just memorials to a sad story. They are living, breathing centers of divine feminine power, and they're worshipped to this very day. So, we end up right back where we started, but now with a totally new way of looking at it. The story of the Shakti Peethas shows us that from the deepest, darkest grief and destruction, something powerful, something lasting and sacred can be born. Which really leaves us with one final thing to think about. What does it truly mean for a place to hold divine energy?